Hello and welcome to LeisureCast. My name is Brian Krogsgaard here with Josh Olswich. Hey Josh, how you doing?
Big B dog, how's it going?
Big B dog.
That was fresh off the dome. I didn't even pre-think that. I was just boom.
I've been called a lot of things. I've never been called Big B dog, but that's fine. I'm doing all right. I mean, we're trying to put some hopium in the world here. You said a little before we started recording that you might actually be a little bit bullish. Or are we just in the same range we've been in for a week or two now before more pain? I don't know, Josh. I don't know. How are you doing?
Good. Summer's in full swing, right?
It is in full swing. It is so hot. I went to the beach last week and it was very warm. I also went with crypto people, which seems very dangerous for my history of markets going down horrendously whenever I meet people in real life, but I did it anyway.
So I guess to frame this whole conversation for the next however long we have here is, what is your time frame? What are your expectations? Like, are you positioning for the next week, the next 3 months, the next 12 months? Because I think that's going to be different on how you look at this for a lot of people. You know, because in the near term, to me, we're on lower time frames. We're printing patterns that don't look doomy like they did before. You know, we can contrast this with the previous consolidation that looked pretty conclusively at like a descending triangle, and that's how it played out.
Yeah.
So I'm not seeing that here. You know, it started off as inverted. Then it moved to an Adam and Eve. Now it's maybe a bigger inverted head and shoulders, right? Like maybe all this is just nonsense, but it's not, to me, it's not drawing stuff that would look like Turbo Bear, you know?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I mean, I think it's a range. I don't like triple bottoms. But it seems reasonable. Maybe. Got my fingers crossed that we could be setting up a temporary bottom, a little more room for upside. I think we're just tied so much to legacy markets that it just kind of depends on what they do, even though there's been a couple of days where we've outperformed legacy markets.
No, I agree 100%. Dixie being at infinity, it feels like is a big problem for BTC and ETH. S&P, I don't know, I haven't looked at it today, but didn't look too terrible. Obviously CPI and FOMC and all this other stuff that's going on the macro side of things is a big issue. But I just think in our little micro moment here, we're on the pier, on the dock of our favorite pond or something, right? We're just like staring. It's just about today, right? We're just enjoying the now. We're enjoying the now with the possibility that this thing might pop up above the horizontal resistance.
Yeah,
you know,
it might.
So
I don't know.
I'm living in that space.
Would you call this a triple bottom, or is it more of a lower or higher lows than equal low?
I think you could call it a triple bottom. You know, the chart pattern people are gonna murder me if I call this an inverted head and shoulders, but whatever, right? Call it whatever you want. Call it an ascending triangle. The point is, all this stuff like doesn't point to lower lows, much like the previous consolidation did. I'm only looking at ETH because of the merge news. I think that anytime there's anything about we're closer to the merge, like there's just this like, oh God, we're almost there. You know, like,
yeah,
there's something to get bullish about. Like the MATIC news with Disney, it's like there's something to get bullish about. Like, is that going to materialize into anything necessarily super relevant? Maybe not, but
yeah, I think the only difference that I really like between this and the previous consolidation that broke down is these equal highs. Like, we haven't made a higher high yet, which is not great, but at least there's two equal highs and maybe a third one here, versus each one of those other ones getting sold into more quickly, and you're kind of holding at the floor, and these are not equal lows exactly. So the shape of the pattern is slightly better, but it's still not exactly screaming at you to go all in.
No, definitely not. It's not screaming massive mega trend reversal. It's not screaming all in. It's screaming maybe there's a breakout trade in here to me. That's what it's screaming. And maybe we do some dancing around the previous levels until legacy tells us otherwise. But again, if I'm in the moment, if I'm here in the now, in a vacuum on my deserted island, I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll take a stab at that. You know, that doesn't look bad. But trend wise, obviously, like, you know, daily, whatever, we are definitely not bullish for sure. We're so far down below the 200. If anything, that gives you more confidence for like a mean reversion type setup. You also got to think like Celsius related everything. Are they done selling? Do they have more to sell? Is there more to sell OTC? The people that got us here, 3AC, right? Like the forced selling stuff. Is that still a part of this or not?
I don't know. I mean, a lot of the forced selling seems done. So is that bullish?
Right. That's what I'm sort of positing.
Like, who's left to get?
How much exactly? How much more forced selling is there? Is there some unforeseen forced selling from some unforeseen investor or blanking hedge fund? You know, whatever it is. Like, who's left to force sell? At least with size, like, you know, reminiscent of Celsius or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe there's somebody. Maybe there's some lender that I'm not thinking of, but Celsius appears to be done with all that nonsense at the moment.
Yeah. Celsius, you see, they had a $1.2 billion hole, and it includes, like, it's bigger if you don't count their $600 million token FDV and something else of ridiculousness that they have on their counting on their books. So their hole might be bigger than 1.2 billion, but they declared bankruptcy. They're the second lender to declare bankruptcy, and then if you include BlockFi getting the liquidity backstop from FTX, there's 3 on the verge. There's some news today that looks pretty scary from BlockFi. Not BlockFi, from Nexo. Nexo is withholding people's withdrawal requests, and they're like, earn extra percentages or something if you don't withdraw for another month. Something ridiculous like that. And it looks like the type of thing that insinuates insolvency.
Looks like it's fake, people are saying in the chat.
Looks like
the Nexo stuff was fake.
I don't know.
Well, here's the weird thing. They came out and said they want to start acquiring these distressed lenders. And then like a couple days ago, they moved 100K ETH, okay. I think, on chain.
This is saying maybe the email was fake. I don't know. It's from this Otteru person.
Investigator. There's a lot of investigator people out there.
It's so, the source is on some kind of 4chan board. So
always a good thing, right?
Yeah. So maybe it's fake, but
I'm gonna assume it's fake until otherwise.
I just know I'm not interested in putting funds on any of those kinds of platforms. The only direction funds would be going on any of those platforms is out, in my mind. Do you think that's wrong?
No, I agree 100%.
So if
bring them all into self-custody, boys and girls.
Yeah. I guess the point is, like, that could be a reason to assume their future insolvency is possible. Like, if people are basically, they have to have those customer assets on their platform to stay solvent because of some liquidity issue they may have, or like illiquid assets or something that still exists in their system, whatever. So I don't know. Maybe that's some forced selling that could still come in the future, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at here. But
I certainly hope they are okay. It is hard for me to believe that they would be untouched by all of this stuff going on because they are in the ecosystem. They appear to be fine based on that arcane research. I can pull it up, but somebody looked at like Vet. I'm gonna butcher his name. It's like Vetla or something.
Okay.
Shout out to him. Anyway, he put together this like daily attestation that somebody releases about their reserves at Nexo, and it has declined, but they still apparently have a bunch of BTC sitting in their reserves. Anyway,
Gotcha. Well, hopefully they're fine. There's been a bunch of random FUD, I think, also by the same Otaru person. So maybe he's just making a bunch of stuff up. I don't really know. But I just, you want to be on the lookout for things that could be forced selling events. And you also want to be cognizant that things could be fake. So hopefully they're fine, like you said. Nevertheless.
yeah, no, I think you're doing the right thing in that you are planning for the worst, right? Hoping for the best, planning for the worst, or whatever that saying is.
Yeah.
Because like, who else is left to say that they've lost hundreds of millions?
I
don't really know. Besides Nexo, right? Like maybe KuCoin, but that got put to bed last week, I think. As far as there was some insolvency rumors there. There was some rumors about Silvergate, the bank. Those seem to be put to bed. The rumors about USDC, that seems to be put to bed. They've come out and said, here are reserves. It was audited or whatever by some firm in the US, right? You can see they have cash in US treasuries. What else is there? Tether? Like Tether exploding? Maybe, right? Like, I don't think it's going to happen, but if you're just trying to map out the possibilities here.
Well, I saw some obscene Bloomberg, I think it was Bloomberg thing, where the headline was like, slumps in Tether and Luna indicate. And I'm like, what? I'll show you this.
I've spent a lot of time in the past couple of weeks explaining to people that not all stablecoins are created equally and not all stablecoins are the same thing and there are different types. And algorithmic stablecoins have never worked historically.
Yeah. Slump by Terra and Tether highlights risk to broader markets. Might be one of the dumbest things I've ever read.
Well, I know, but at the same time, you know what they're saying, because if you look at Tether's market rate, it's still slightly below $1. It's very different than Terra. Obviously, you and I know that. But, the headline is understandable.
No, but in terms of what this represents,
but it's
of
not
course
exactly incorrect.
What this represents to the world, right, is basically, these are all struggling in the same way. Terra went to zero and Tether is worth $0.9999. It's night and day. And I think this kind of article just makes me sick. I think your tethers are fine, but
I will agree with you. I wish Tether would release its attestation already, because it's been since March.
You see USDC did some kind of thing like that where they highlighted the exact treasury blocks that they own.
Yep. They smell blood in the water here. They are ready to take Tether down and become the de facto stablecoin for sure. Because they're trying to say, look at us. We are more transparent. We behave with the regulators, right? And hopefully Tether continues to get more and more transparent, just like that. To report this stuff daily isn't that hard. The TradFi people tell me this. This is a normal thing. It's super easy to do. You can just pull this up and say, okay, this is what we have, right? It's not hard to do.
Yeah. So let's look at this USDC one. It's interesting. The maturity dates on their US treasuries are very frequently, every week basically, but they go out to 9/29. They have 42 billion of securities, which those are earning small amounts of yield for them. And then they have 13.5 billion of cash. So you can see in this type of scenario how you could make a run on these assets, right? Because if the maturity date is when those funds become available to them to put in, regular liquid financial institutions, then I guess that's something to consider. But I don't know how locked they are. Could they force those funds out quicker? I don't really know how all that part of it works, but it is interesting just to see the structure of it, right? They've got $55.7 billion of assets held on behalf of USDC holders, 42.1 billion of it in treasury securities, and 13.6 billion of it in cash at regulated U.S. financial institutions. I would love to see Tether do that, to put that out. And their average weighted maturity, it says, is 43.9 days. I do think it impacts their liquidity, but somebody smarter than me would have to express that to me. But that's great to see. That's all people want to see.
I agree. And I hope Tether continues to go this direction. And no one's going to trust the attestation anyway. There's always going to be an excuse that this isn't being honest or something. But we need to go this direction, right? The games are over. We're out of the shadows now. There's no reason to hide. Like, we get it. We know what stablecoins are. Not that they were bad actors previously, but I think we've talked about this before. Like Tether, when it got spun up, they couldn't like just go to a bank and just do this stuff because banks didn't want to touch them,
Yeah.
But that has changed dramatically over the past few years, obviously.
Yeah.
I was just going to add, Tether is down to 55 billion circulating USDC. Sorry, Tether 66 billion, USDC 55 billion circulating.
That flippening seems inevitable, don't you think?
It does seem inevitable. One other interesting thing is the USDC yields are still 0.5%. The GUSD yields are 6.9%.
Wait, USDC are 0.5%, so half of 1%.
Correct.
GUSD yields are 6 point what percent?
6.9.
Oof. That's very high. How are they achieving that? They just giving money away?
I don't know. Again, I can't remember if we talked about this, but a couple of weeks ago,
For the audience,
dropped,
GUSD is Gemini.
Yeah, sorry. A couple of weeks ago, USDC dropped their yields from whatever they were, like 4 to 1, and now they're 0.5. GUSD still 6.9. I don't know where they're getting that yield. I assume it's Genesis. I assume it's some long-term fixed contract. It has to be. Like, why isn't this? I don't know. Like, I don't know, so I shouldn't speculate on it, but it just seems very odd. One way they could get away with this is because GUSD is just such a smaller circulating. It's like 210 million, if that. That interest on that versus billions is different, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I think the flipping does happen. Price wise, we talked about this a little bit already, but the prices of Tether versus USDC to parity.
Yeah.
So that Bloomberg article looks even worse, obviously. Looking at this, like you said, it's 0.9998 or something.
Yeah, who cares?
Right? Like,
it's the same thing. It's $1.
Right. But again, Tether's like this boogeyman that people just can't wait to inevitably see to zero because they think, right, they don't got it. They don't have anything in their reserves. Whatever people think, whatever. Anyway.
A couple of things we've been asked about in the chat worth talking about. One is the Looks token unlocked this morning. It's up 12%. The token in their strategic sale was, I think, between 5 and 6% of supply. This is the second quasi-bullish unlock of late. The other one that people were anticipating a lot of action on was CVX, which is, I think, doubled almost since it unlocked. So people asked about the impact of that and those type of locks. In this scenario, it wasn't a huge percentage of the total supply, but I do think it was probably impacting people's willingness to buy, knowing that token holders from the strategic sale would be unlocking. But it doesn't appear like those people are selling today. Whether they sell in the future or not, I'm not sure. And then the other question was changes in demand and supply post-merge. Do you have that for the ETH stuff?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because that was my first thought when I saw this look stuff. The inflation goes to zero, right? Post merge.
Yeah, pretty much.
And EIP 1559 isn't necessarily active anymore, right? Because there's no miners to like, I don't know. I'd have to double check on all that, how exactly that gets baked in. But
Here's a supply projection on ultrasound.money.
Okay.
So it depends on the fee and everything. But if you look at the supply peak that's projected, it would be in August, September. And then basically after the merge, it becomes slightly deflationary in total supply. And that breakdown is just between validators, contracts, accounts, who has what supply.
I love how that projects out to 2026 when the funds will probably get unlocked well before 2026.
Yeah, well,
because that's the thing. There's this window for people who don't know. There's a window between the merge and the beacon chain, like proof of stake rewards getting unlocked, right? So there's going to be a period where the inflation is like building and building and building, but it's just not liquid or not circulating. It's uncirculating staking rewards, right?
Yeah. So they'll still have the fee burn per your question about 1559 stuff.
Okay.
Because the fee burn is just a base of the transaction itself. The miners don't really get anything out of that. But the deflation amount changes drastically depending on what the base gas price is.
Right. So what you want as an investor is extremely high gas prices post merge, because then you get negative inflation or deflation, right? Because you're burning more than you're minting effectively.
Right. But if we
obviously that's a terrible user experience.
If we push it way down to 1 GWE average gas price and 33 million ETH staked, because the proof of stake issuance goes up in that regard. So if there's only 1 million ETH staked, you get 500.5k ETH. So I guess that's 500 ETH a day.
I think there's 12 million ETH staked right now, right?
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, what's the variances, right? Like, what's the issuance that changes over time? If you do 33 million ETH stake, 2.6 thousand ETH per day are issued. And then it'd be slightly inflationary at essentially the lowest possible fees and the highest possible staked amount. But if you go to whatever it is now, 15 million, and say like 10 GWE base gas price, it's not, I don't know if that's deflationary, but it's basically flat. And then if you do higher gas prices, higher staked amounts, whatever, it starts to become deflationary. So either way, the issuance of ETH should go down significantly with the merge. It may become net deflationary. Don't really know. It depends on many things. But if you stake a whole lot and you burn a whole lot from fees, then it could get quite deflationary.
The fundamentals are there.
Fundamentals are there.
The table is set, as I like to say. There's so much riding on this. So much.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an exciting tradable event for sure. Just expect shenanigans on the DApp side of things, the loan side of things, the Oracle side of things. Like, can you imagine if like your loan is, the Oracle for it is on like the chain that didn't merge or something? Like just crazy wacky stuff that could happen.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Because like the testnet, I'm sure they attempt to look at stuff like this, but they don't have like the full ecosystem.
Yeah, they probably don't know. They probably can't expect everything that could possibly go wrong on ETH layer 1. It's not confirmed that they will merge on August 30th. It's something happened recently. I don't know. It's basically a blend of listening to David, aka Trustless State, and the Sassel guy when I see their tweets talking about what's likely. And I think David said something like something in August or September provides a real route for the merge. They've also done like their second or third testnet thing. So target is September 19th. Okay, that's what the chat's saying.
Yeah, it goes through various checkpoints in the testnet. I mean, I do like that ETH has pulled back 80% from highs or whatever. And now the merge is happening versus
it makes it a much higher chance of being bullish.
Right, exactly.
It was super bearish ahead of time.
Versus the merge happening at 4,000. Like, imagine a world where ETH drops to like sub 500 and then the merge happens. Like,
then it'd be very bullish.
Right? Like,
who wouldn't want to be all in ETH if it's $500 at the time of the merge? I'd want to be all in ETH. Unless the merge is, I'm just saying, like, very scary.
If we think about, if we put all the pieces together, right? We got macro stuff that's an absolute dumpster fire. Recession, you know, the worst words you can imagine related to macro. Dollar going to infinity. It's hard to see ETH or anything turning around in a big way over multiple weeks with all that stuff going on. But if we can quiet down on the macro side of things as the merge is happening, that's perfect. The timing is perfect. The other thing about this is historically, all these hard forks for ETH have the buy and hold 90 days out has outperformed like everything. Buying earlier, buying later. Historically, the buy and hold for 3 months after the merge is the trade. So I'd love to see that play out again. Because that's really, again, part of the timing component would be like Q4, we'd start to see ETH turning the corner a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think that's a reasonable timetable for all this stuff to work out.
For sure. So somebody in the chat, I'm not sure what they're referencing because I'm trying to confirm it. Talking about the pivot points on the S&P 500 hitting a level and backing off, but I don't actually see evidence of that. So clarify that in the chat, and I'll try to pull it up.
Should we talk about MATIC a little bit? Because MATIC's kind of been a little outperformer.
Oh, they were talking about last year. Okay, I'll pull it. So SPX hit R2 at 4,800 and then topped. So I guess you could look at it that way. But currently, we're not really close to any pivot. We're underneath S1. But yeah, talk about MATIC, Josh.
Yeah, so they had the Reddit NFT stuff, which to me is like whatever.
What does that mean?
So Reddit partnered with Poly to release their avatar marketplace or something. I don't know. Like, cool. I think there's going to be more marketplaces than NFT users pretty soon. But so they had that like 2 weeks ago, and then this week they had this Disney Accelerator news. They got named as one of the 6. They're like Web3.
Yeah, something. I saw somebody make a worthy comment on that. And it was like, your market cap was like $40 billion. What do you need to be an accelerator for? It's just PR. What are they going to win if they're accepted as an accelerator? 50 grand? You know, what the heck? It reminds me of Dragon Chain.
I was, like I said, I have this notepad from Dragon Chain on my desk. You know I do. And I thought that's the exact same thought that went through my head. Like, this is Dragon Chain playbook all over again.
Yeah. Disney gets 6% if they win. 6% of what? The company's equity? This makes no sense. Who cares? They're just trying to pump their bags. MATIC is probably the sidechain / L2, quasi L2 that I trust the least.
Really?
Yeah, I don't like them at all. Like, I just don't trust them.
Well, they had a catalyst, arguably, when nothing much else was going on. The chart also looked decently okay.
I'm not trying to hate on their biz dev or anything. It's probably all fine. There's lots of coins that are garbage that have good marketing. I feel like we just reversed roles here.
We did. We really did. You very much did.
Look at that. Dump it right off the cloud. Big old thick cloud.
But yeah, no, it made a move. I think it still looks okay. I would love to see everything else catch up to this. You know, if ETH breaks that horizontal at 1250, if Bitcoin breaks the horizontal at 2200, MATIC could go to $1, like, you know, crazy targets like that. And then the very near term, certainly possible. But MATIC was the first mover for sure.
Should we stay on the cloud for a hot minute? Look at it with
Sure.
BTC and ETH.
Yeah.
Some interesting targets there.
I tweeted it a couple days ago that the BTC target is 33K.
Yeah, it seems for the cloud edge to edge. Yeah, it is.
Right.
I feel like even if you don't get that, this seems like one of those kind of classic cloud scenarios where you do get the mean reversion back to the Keynesian or the bottom of the cloud at least 23 or 25, something like that. But that if it gets through, then yeah, fat cloud at 33K. Everybody would be selling that, right? Like, who's holding that? Who's holding Bitcoin at 33K?
I think the 33K guy would be selling 33K.
Cloud,
yeah, no,
cloud tells
I
you to. I'd be out. You'd be out.
Here's my read. Okay, I like 33K in Q4. I would love to see us just do a bunch of nothing, eat through FOMC, eat through these rate hikes, and come out of Q4 and attempt some sort of reversal. I just don't know. With everything else going on, it's so hard to be bullish, regardless of technicals. Like, who's going to buy anything crypto with inflation at infinity, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know. But the technical setup is certainly there for BTC. We saw this in 2018, right? This is this very similar, even May, June, July, right? It's a similar thing where we get this consolidation and then you get that move into that cloud level. Sorry, this was 2018. You know, we did a bunch of nothing for like 6 months. I would love that. If it's not Q4, let's make it Q2. But you know, this is a very easy trade. That's why it's a very easy setup. I just have a hard time believing if ETH is bullish in Q4 based on the merge, that BTC won't get pulled up with it. You know.
Yeah.
I don't know. The timing is going to be interesting. ETH is very similar. It looks just like that on the cloud. ETH's level would be 2250, 2235, something like that.
Or the edge to edge move at what, 2500?
Like 13 to 22.
2230.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, you see levels like this and trades like this early, and it's like, man, I can't imagine what gets us there, you know. But people kind of said the same thing about this March trade from 3K to 3,500. Much smaller percentage, but
yeah. Someone in the chat spamming me to turn on an indicator called moments, so I did, which historically looks like it's tried to detect bottoms pretty well when it flips from red to green. Looks reasonably good to me. I don't know what it's made up of, but I said I would put it on if they spammed me enough for it. So
you've appeased the terrorist.
Yeah, I know. He messaged me recently and told me that he was sorry for being a jerk in the past. So this is our armistice.
They're forgiven. Yeah, I don't know what that indicator is. I've never seen it before.
Yeah, you can play with it another time. But this
But
does.
even the.
I was just going to say.
Go ahead.
It does look like it's a reasonable mean reversion play, especially if you actually can confirm this higher high on the daily time frame. I think that if you can do that and then not like immediately have perps go crazy, that kind of thing, then there might be some ability to sustain that move. So what you really want is for it to occur and also people basically just fade it. You know, like that would be the best combination. I don't know that I'd be looking for too much though. Like 22, 23, 25. The 33K seems like high upside, or the 2300 for ETH. 1500 though, 1800, something like that, I could understand.
Exactly, Sav in the chat. He or she says we're going into a recession. Who's buying ETH? Look, I agree with you, right? That's the problem here between technicals and macro. Macro probably wins. Macro probably dumps us lower eventually, right? But again, you're on the dock of the pier of the pond in your grandparents' backyard. It's just about the now. You're skipping rocks.
Are there a lot of
Whatever it
people?
is.
Are there a lot of people out there to capitulate ETH to be lower, or is it true believers?
No. At the pond, it's just you.
Yeah.
Are there a lot of people to capitulate? Well, if you look at MVRV, which is market cap against realized price of coins that have moved on chain, realized price is above market cap. So that means any of that like pent up unrealized profit is effectively zero on aggregate, so it's not like there's a ton of people sitting in profit here, right?
No.
Are there people who are going to be capitulating? I mean, like, if you haven't capitulated already, I guess, like, what are you waiting for? I don't know.
And also a squeeze, like if enough people are short or scared of being out, whichever way you want to look at it, cash on the sidelines, a squeeze can take the price pretty far, and liquidity is the lowest it's been in quite some time too. So even if you're like a turbo bear, you should be looking at this as, how could I get squeezed, right? Which is no different than in a bull market. You could say, hey, all things point to a bull market. Why would I ever be bearish? Like, it's up only, yada, yada, yada. And yet you continuously have 25, 30% drawdowns even in the bull market because people get squeezed in bad longs. And in that environment, it can still go down 25, 30% when the market's much, 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 much more liquid. So I think that's what goes into why squeezes in a bear market can be so large. 40, 50% increases for sure can just be an effect on liquidity.
Yeah, and if I'm bearish, I'm not going to reshort this at 1250 or 1260 at horizontal resistance. I'm reshorting it at some mean reversion target, like the key June at like 1500. Like, I would love a wick to 1500 if I'm trying to short this thing. Or pick whatever your favorite MA is. It doesn't have to be the key.
Well, you could start shorting from this range, stop out at, I don't know, 1300 ETH, and then try to get back in at 1500. If you're shorting the market, that's a reasonable way to look at it.
Right. The reason breakout trades typically happen, or the reason you get this these horizontal resistances, is because you have people shorting at 1270 in this case, right?
Yeah.
Where you have people with asks there already.
Yeah.
And if buyers step in and say, we're going to take this thing higher, then the sellers have to decide, do I close this with a stop loss at a loss? Do I keep it open, right? And then that's where you get this potential for higher highs based on that. But like, I don't think there's a great case for shorting it here. 1270, sure, like, go for it. Right, it's a horizontal resistance,
Yeah, I think you could. I mean, if you wanted to short it, you'd start scaling in here probably, and just have a $100 tolerance for being wrong, or like scaling further into your position. You're not invalidated. You're not invalidated until it's like 1300.
That's fair. I just don't think I think there's a better case for waiting for a long here than adding to a short here.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you.
The other part of it is, we're down, what are we? 75% from the top since October. We're down 66% since April. I know we're all thinking lower because of macro, but
yeah. You could just
call me an optimist here.
No, I'm with you. I completely agree. I just know if you're a bear, this is what your orders look like. You know, like
Yeah, that's fair. That's a fair strategy for sure.
And you know, you can either take profit here, or you could get really, really bearish when it goes to the same kind of levels for the fourth time, and just assume that's when we nuke. And so your trade wins in this type of scenario, and you just hope you don't get squeezed out of it.
Yeah, if the chart looked different, you know, if there was not a triple bottom there, I'd say, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
You know, there's a reason that the patterns form like they do. Even that descending triangle, right? People keep shorting lower and lower and lower. Or they sell lower and lower and lower, right? And that's how you get that bias baked in to the price. So yeah, I don't know. I've got a bullish bias. I got the bull hat on this week, at least until 15. ETH, I think, makes the strongest case for higher highs. ETH BTC has kind of just done a bunch of nothing, right?
Yeah, it's been pretty noisy.
What is this old pitchfork I have on here? Look at that thing.
Look at that.
Look at that beauty.
It's pointless though. It's like the world's largest range ever.
No, that must be years old, honestly.
I don't think ETH BTC looks bad.
It doesn't look bad. If anything, it's breaking out of the
it's
trying
like
to
recapturing a range.
It doesn't.
If I go back
amazing.
to my old 0.055 thing, and we talked about like below that 0.04 was on the table, never got there, and now might be flipping the other direction. So you could make a case all the way back up to 0.066. Above that, 0.078. That would also be like really great in terms of merge narrative stuff, you know? No matter what the USD price is, if you're just trying to stack relative to Bitcoin, then you could make some merge arguments there for sure.
Well, that's the thing. The expectation is merge is bullish. ETH BTC should take all the steam out of everything, right? It should do really well against BTC. If you're a meth head, you're looking at ETH BTC thinking, man, this thing's going to 0.2, 0.25. Inflation's going to be negative, right? Like,
well, that's the narrative. You kind of want that across the board, right? Like, what's going to make a bear market a little more tolerable? It's the market not going up altogether or down altogether, but you have individual trades where liquidity can better concentrate for moves, so that the active manager, if you will, is rewarded versus the person that just buys across the board because the winds of the market are expressing itself that way. So if you could combine that with a narrative and say, look, I'm bullish ETH relative to everything for a while, and then maybe as the halvening approaches, you say, all right, I'm going to rotate back to BTC. You know, like it's just issuance related stuff on majors, and that would make sense. That'd be reasonable. I could understand that.
I agree with that logic.
When is the halvening? 2024?
Yeah, early 2024.
So, pretty long way.
659 days, something like that, yeah.
Yeah. What other news is there? Anything else you want to touch on?
I don't think so. Just looking through the weekly news review I put together. I don't see anything. I mean, Circle, we talked about. Sri Lanka. I mean, there's tons of like global unrest where crypto could be a lifeline for people when their fiat currencies are failing.
Well, you know, NFTs are moving still, which is amazing. Like on a relative basis, they've outperformed pretty much everything, haven't they? They've kept up with ETH fairly well. If you just,
I was going to say, define relative.
Like if you look at the top of the market, Bored Ape Yacht Club still at 100 ETH floor.
Right. If we're talking about in terms of ETH.
No, of course not. And returns of ETH. But if you look at it on a relative basis, the NFT market's done fine.
In notional terms, it has not. In ETH terms, yes, the floors have maintained the floors.
Yeah. There's been a lot of speculation on some art blocks stuff recently as well, which is maybe scary. But yeah, overall the market seems to be doing fine, NFT wise.
I just don't know how to gauge that. Like, is that a signal, or is that just like completely divorced from everything else? Like some punk sold for 2.5 million USD the other day.
Yeah, it was 2,500 ETH.
Is that, does that mean something, or is that just, you know,
just some strength on blue chips? People are considering them an ETH relative safe haven, which is stunning.
Okay.
But
I don't know how to evaluate that information. That's all I'm saying.
yeah. Can you actually turn it into a win? Like, why not hold ETH? ETH is more liquid, that kind of thing. Maybe you think that there's upside. I don't know. Just something worth noting. NFT market's
Fair.
a big part of the market these days.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then there's been like these short pumps and stuff on smaller collections. That's the other thing you're looking at there. Aave, DeFi's been performing pretty well the past couple of weeks, which is not been a good sign for the market for the last 2 years, has it?
Really? Well, I saw Uni got listed on Robinhood, so it did a little ditty.
I own DeFi right now. Like I've been long that move, and it's been my first good trade in a while. So I want it to keep doing well, but it does make me nervous. We talked
about this 2 weeks ago, but like comp is, we can check, but you know, stuff that's below its effective like
forever
birth, its inception.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you take a stab. Fundamentally, for me, a lot of this DeFi stuff doesn't make any sense that it has a token. Link, classic example. Wi-Fi, another example. I'm a broken record. I talk about this all the time, but tell me how Link, the token, is connected to the protocol. Like, I would love to know.
Don't know, man. People are going to message us, though. I don't want to answer these questions because they'll be wrong.
I just want to hear an explanation from people, because it's been how many years now, and I don't know the answer to that.
But if you look at Aave relative to ETH as an example, Aave relative to BTC, the relative trades on some of these blue chips look pretty good. Uni relative to BTC.
I guess if we're stacking ETH.
Yeah.
I mean, in a bear market, I guess you have to sort of find the trades.
Got to find something to stack.
Yeah, staking soon with Chainlink. You know, we've been hearing that for how many years? Like, cool, great, but what does that provide for the protocol? And like I just don't. I don't know. I hope they do well. I hope it works out, but I just don't get it. I don't get it. I'll trade it. I'll trade it all day long, but I do not get it at all.
One other ETH related thing that I want to mention is it has been extremely durable, hovering below the 200-week moving average. 1, 2, 3, fourth. This is its fourth week below it, and it's sitting right at it, and it's also right at those 2018 highs. I could absolutely understand a move higher than we're talking about so far. The whatever it was, 1250, or no, we're at 1250, 1500. On the weekly chart, I could imagine 17 to 1800, maybe even that 2200 target that you talked about, if it reclaims that. On a weekly basis, though, I'd be calling for kind of $1,700 to $1,800 ETH, reclaiming that 200 week. BTC is not as close to its 200 week.
What's the 50% retrace of those
the high?
16 weeks of red or whatever it was?
We can find
like that's a reasonable level to just like stack asks if you know, what is it, 22? Yeah, 2222. There you go, easy. Do I think we're gonna hit massive resistance at like 18 to 2K for sure? But 2222 is 50%.
Yeah, I could imagine that. So yet another week of talking about potential mean reversion.
I mean, we stopped making lower lows, right? That's step one. We stopped. The first step was have a green weekly candle. We were there. The next step is stop making lower lows. We're there. Now we're working on making a higher high after accumulation.
Yep.
But But I like where this weekly close, or this, legacy weekly close or whatever. I like the potential of a weekend breakout and then just like give it all back during the week. Right?
Yeah, that's fair. I'd like to see it have a little more sustenance, but beggars can't be choosers. Why don't we leave it there for the week?
Okay.
Thanks for being here, everybody.
We'll be a few sats richer next time we speak.
Oh, I hope so. Go to flip.xyz and sign up. There's a lot of cool stuff that we built lately. You can trade on OpenSea, it looks rare. You can transfer NFTs. You can look at your portfolios. Done before. A lot of cool stuff. Flip.xyz. Thanks. Bye.
In a house of cards, I feel the breeze wound so tight I can barely breathe.